years ago, and that's good enough. We started there.
I've been there for now 8 years.
Oh, hey, well, okay. So history started in the 2010s somewhere.
I was curious to know, though, is the fort on that site or is it unknown?
You know, I've done a little digging and I haven't found anything conclusive yet. What I would like to see is if the property owner would let like a group of BYU archaeology students to come up and just do some ground penetrating radar. I mean, it literally would take 2 days and see if there's something there. I think that would be awesome, but don't know if they'd be open to that or not.
That'd be cool. I'm so used to working with the federal land actions where you have to do all that stuff. You have to do all kinds of environmental assessments to include cultural resources. And it just seems crazy that to me that we don't know where all this stuff is.
I was always taught, Gary, that that one of the buildings in the fort was one of those houses across the street from Blair's house. Next to
the Rock House. I think that wasn't that town hall or something that the Perrys are in?
I don't know. I've been wanting to go in that house for some time and talk to the Perrys about it. So I think they said they had some information about it, but
I believe that's what Sarah was telling me. But
okay,
yeah,
it's definitely a gem of South Weaver. That house is amazing.
Well, get up an appointment and get in there. There's nothing creepy about that. I'd like to check out your house for history reasons, please.
Maybe
they would be open to that. They would be okay, Gary.
Oh, I know. I've talked to them about it. So.
All right, who has the dog?
Not one of mine.
Gary, you probably ought to run over to see Ivan Ray and that old chicken coop behind the store. It used to be the dance hall. See what you can dig up over there too.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's over by the old, by Ray's store by the city office.
Uh-huh.
They had the old dance hall is right there. It's
really
kind of fallen down, but it's still there.
Okay. You can see it from the road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's kind of behind to the west of it.
Yeah.
So I guarantee Ivan would let you take a poke around historically for historical reasons.
No, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Anytime you're ready, Rob.
Oh, I'm ready. It's 6:01. If that's okay with you, I'm ready. Yeah. Is everybody on?
I'm here.
Let's roll call real quick. I think I saw Tim at the end here. Yep. All right. Tim, you said the Pledge of Allegiance last time, right?
No. Do you need me to?
No, Tim did.
Oh.
Yes, I did.
So I'll just take it. So we'll start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and have a public hearing. We have 4 individuals who want to address the commission. We ask that those individuals speak for only 3 minutes, state your name and address, direct the comments towards the entire commission, and please note that the commission will not respond during the public period. Concerning tonight's agenda item, we want to make sure it's clear that this proposal that's out there is nothing that the city is seeking or trying to do, or it's a what do you think type of a deal. So that's about where this is at. The city has not solicited anything for this piece. It's just, again, everybody has a right to be heard, and the developers submitted this as a possibility for that property. So with that said, who do I have first, Kim?
Fran? I'll get her unmuted here in just a sec. Okay, she's unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Got you.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey, my name is Fran Olson. I live at 6901 South, 675 East. Please excuse my heavy accent. Hope you guys can understand what I have to say. So dear Planning Commission members, many of us in South Weber, we bought a house because we loved the area. And some people live here for a long, long time, and they love the area as well. We understand that development will eventually happen, and we respectfully ask the Planning Commission to notice what we don't have a need in South Weber. Please don't approve what we don't need, and please make sure developers offer solutions to our problems and not bring new ones. So some things that I think we don't need in South Weber: high density housing, apartments, or multi-family units. One of the reasons is that we have one elementary school, and my son, for example, when we moved here, they had extra space on the bus, and he was able to, we live in an area that it's we can almost get a bus, but we don't. And when we moved here, he was able to go to school and take the bus. Now he can't anymore. Our school is getting full. South Weber is geographically small and narrow. Extra traffic is simply not safe to pedestrians and cyclists. About the plan, I don't think we need a storage or a hotel. I understand that storage brings good revenue to developers, but it does not offer much to residents, and it does not beautify the city. About the hotel, what kind of hotel it is? There's no picture. Is it a Marriott or a Super 8? The plan shows to me too many items on a small area. It will certainly increase traffic to a small city. Things that we need in South Weber: we need employment for our teenagers, and we need entertainment. Our teenagers need employment. Adding high density housing will not bring employment to our city. Also, we need some commercial areas. We love South Weber as it is, but it's gonna grow. We don't have a grocery store, restaurants, shopping mall, gym, a doctor's office, animal hospital here in South Weber. And we reject the idea that there is no enough traffic to justify a commercial area. We have many houses in South Weber. We have the winters, and we have all the traffic from Highway I-84. The closest commercial area to us is up to the toll road. All the businesses are there, and we have to pay to go there every time we go. For example, I was looking for a gym close to us, and I found one up to the road, up to the toll road. And then I realized the high price I would have, I was gonna pay for between gym membership and the toll road fees. So please, City Council, listen to us, citizens, and we thank you for everything you do. Thanks.
Thanks, Fran. Appreciate it. Kim,
Thanks,
who's
Fran.
next?
All right, the next one is Shannon. One sec.
Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Doug Miller. I live 302 East Old Maple Road. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to chat with you guys about this. We looked at the plan, my wife and I think there's a lot of people in South Weber that are excited about the potential with some commercial stuff. I think there's a lot of people worried that with the way you're rezoning it, that it would have the potential to just become high density unit housing. I think there's a lot of people that are worried about that. One of the worries that I and my wife, and I think a lot of our neighborhood, especially here along Old Maple Road, have is we already have an issue of speeding along this road. And I think whatever you guys put over there, whatever it ends up being, is going to create the potential for more traffic, more speeding. And if we could get some kind of solution to that, I think we'd be fine with whatever you put in there. Whether it be, if it was up to me, I would ask you guys for some speed bumps so that it literally like made people slow down here. But I think that's kind of the concerns I've heard from some of my neighbors and that my wife and I have discussed, and appreciate the time you guys give us to air that out. So thanks.
Thanks, Doug, and welcome to South Weber.
Thank you.
Kim?
Next one would be Jessica. Trying to get them unmuted. Doesn't look like they're responding. There we go.
This is here.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. You have the floor. You're on.
What? Sorry, I'm here with Sierra Homes. What?
Okay, they don't seem to be here anymore.
They dropped off?
Yes.
Oh, it's terrible. Okay, who's next then?
That's all that's on that logged in at least for public comment.
Okay. So I'd just like to mention to everybody listening and in the recording that the commissioners did see the public comments that come through, and Kim actually did a great job to put them all into one spot for us to review. And I have read them, and I appreciate the comments and the ideas. I think it's certainly healthy to understand where everybody's coming from and what's good. So with that, we'd like to have the good folks of Blue Ox Development tell us about the new plan here at 475 East, 6650 South. Is Carter doing that, or what? Who's doing it?
I think actually Marty's doing that. Is Marty on the phone?
Marty's here.
I am. Hi guys. Sorry, I just had to get off mute there. Just a quick introduction. I'm a member of the community. I live in South Weber, and I've been in South Weber for about a year, and my wife and I hope to live here till the day we die. We love it. We love South Weber, and we want the absolute best for South Weber to happen. And so, you know, having the opportunity to partner with both Nate and Carter on this project as Blue Ox Development, you know, we feel like, you know, we have a vested interest in making this project really light off. That'll be beneficial to the citizens here, you know, for years to come. We're not here just to make a buck, as you know, there may be an insinuation. And, you know, our development, you know, objective here is really to, you know, solve for problems of the community, as well as attract the right services and the right mixture to the area that can be sustainable as well. So, both marrying the community and the commercial needs of the area. Just a quick apology here. Kim, what slide are we on here?
The first slide, can you see it?
I had to flip around to the backside of my computer camera to be able to show my face on this. And
Understood.
so anyway, if we can go to the slide number 2, our goal and objective.
Okay, we're there. You just tell me where you need to be and I'll make sure you're there.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, really, just reading it through, we want to bring commercial services to that I-84 Adams Road exchange, providing services that best serve the community. Services not only, commercially, but, also just in space planning. Providing essential services. Really, thank you for the comments from those who have spoken and also have written in. We are locked arm in arm with you in providing those essential services that the community needs. And we also want to make sure that we're generating stable commercial city tax base. Making the commercial really thrive in that area. Going to the next slide, just a quick riff off of that previous slide, and we want to bring the right mix of commercial services. What we've shown in the site plan, if you've taken a look at that, that's a like Planning Commission has said, it's really just an idea at this moment. We really feel like there's a lot of energy around a gas station there. But the other ideas there for commercial, we're still, creating that plan, and we'd like to keep that open and, incorporate as much of the community's needs as we can, and attract the right tenants. We've taken a look at and have communicated with a lot of different commercial entities that, for grocery stores or for, Whole Foods sort of places, or, services that, restaurants, car dealerships, and we've had a really tepid response. And so, we want to make sure that we're bringing in tenants that feel like, they can make it here. That's something that we can't force. We really can't. So kind of moving to the next slide, current status. And let's go ahead and just flip to the slide that shows the picture that follows that. Basically, so we're describing this current triangle piece, the Stevens property. It currently has 2 zones. Right now, it's currently zoned as highway commercial and agricultural, and we agree that there's not enough highway commercial there. Currently, that little tiny spot is about 5.5 acres of commercial. We feel like moving that highway commercial to an acreage of around 9, is really sustainable for this corner. Next slide. Problem number 1. Not the right mix. CH zone portion of the parcel is too small. More of the A zone portion of the parcel needs to be CH. And the new general plan suggests converting the whole parcel to CH. Going to the next slide, problem number 2. All CH or commercial highway doesn't work. All CH proposals have been entertained without success. There simply are not enough traffic counts to justify that much commercial. That is not a statement that we've made arbitrarily. That is a statement that is a result of metrics and demographics coming from commercial entities, retail, industrial, commercial, who have said this does not pencil based on our historic data. And so, we need to really make sure that we respect that and work within those boundaries. So, forcing all CH would lead to high vacancy and turnover, or a vacant lot, undeveloped for a long time. So next slide. Our solution here is a combination of CH and R7, so commercial highway and residential, 7 units per acre. 7 units per acre. I want to be very clear to anyone listening that this is not a high density zone. This is South Weber has in fact eliminated the high density zoning, and R7, is a zoning that allows for a less dense environment, and bringing that in, that helps this project as a whole happen, and bringing this in also avoids a lot of problems. We've gone from a few iterations to this point, and we really appreciate the comments and input that have been given up to this point. Concepts before this included a very high density apartment building. Concepts before this, and bringing that density down significantly. Basically what this has done is this has, number one, eliminated a barracks feel of townhomes that could exist. We've kind of put together this proposal of bringing in this park-like feel to this neighborhood with lots of common space that is maintained by an HOA. So it's something that if any other residents were to drive through to a friend's home there, let's say you have some young couples whose parents live in the community and want to be close to mom and dad, or maybe you have mom and dad who are downsizing from a 4,000 square foot home to something a little bit more manageable. Here you have a location that's being taken care of and kept at a high market value for its duration, and also very close in proximity to essential services. So yeah, basically this does give, going back to the slide, it designs attractive clusters with elements that look and feel like single family dwellings. They work within a density, the zoning that's part of South Weber's code, and it's a private community feel without private community infrastructure, and kind of creating that. The next slide, solution layout. This is just kind of a reiteration of the layout, which I have at the end of the presentation as well, and we can kind of speak to that a little bit more at that point. The next slides are examples of residential units similar to what we're proposing, where we have fourplexes that have a real single family dwelling feel to it. So the first slide is just a nice street view. The second slide, going to that one, it shows another street view, and then the third slide shows an aerial of kind of what that looks like, and very similar in feel to what we put in this concept. Going to the next slide, to the solution summary, showing gas station and convenience store, and all of these bullet point items, these are all proposed potential options. These are options that we feel like really have a good shot of making it. Their design, the layout is something that we would love to work with everyone to massage and really make what works for the community. But the gas station and convenience store, 2.28 acres, the hotel at 3.28 acres, the mall, strip mall with a number of retail at 1.2 acres, and then the rentable public storage at 2.42. Totaling around nine acres. That's over half of the space available. And just to make sure here, yeah, All right, so the edits there, residential, the R7 and green space, take up about 8 acres, and totaling about 6 units per acre. So not really maxing out that 7 units per acre zoning. Making sure that we still have more green space than what we otherwise could have applied for there. With the total parcel acreage at about 17 acres. Moving on, I think a few other comments just to kind of wrap up the presentation here. This site here, there were a lot of comments about the historical significance of this land, and we definitely feel obligated to and would love to incorporate that and talk about ideas of how we can do that. Knowing that on this site there aren't really a whole lot of structures to preserve, so that can manifest itself in either preserving that plaque that's there, or doing something a little bit more extensive and providing elements there that that really speak to that history of the Morsite War and the Fort Kingston. As a matter of fact, kind of a name that's been circulating in our office for this project is Fort Kingston Crossing, or Kingston Fort Crossing. Kind of really making sure that that we can keep this history alive, as we continue to augment and embellish this land here. And finally, we're open to bringing in elements that the community sees that would be of benefit, with some of the green space, possibly even putting in some pickleball courts, or providing a little bit more easement for the trail that the general plan talks about going adjacent to this property, and obviously creating that meandering feel in this development, and kind of nodding to some of the other comments of creating a sense of place, a place of gathering, if you will. And that was a strong point that came through, and we are very appreciative of those comments. And like I said, this concept here, we brought this up to really just present kind of what we want to do, which really is in order to make the commercial work, bring in this R7 element. And if this R7 element can be brought in, we can massage this to make it work. And so I guess the ask at this point is to come to the planning commission to see if we have I don't know if it's the right step here to ask for a development agreement upon certain conditions, or just an approval to move forward to the concept phase of development.
Okay. Thanks, Marty. Planning commissioners have any questions?
Certainly I do.
Okay.
So I maybe we'll take these first couple of questions initially. And can you speak to the type of hotel chain that has expressed interest or may express interest in this site?
Carter, has there been any specific brand?
No, no. At the moment, we've reached out to a couple hotel developers, and at the moment, they're kind of a pass. We really actually see the hotel parcel coming down the road once the development actually takes place. The hotel developers, they're typically the last ones in, so we feel once that pad is established and the rest of the development is done, and we hold that for a hotel, eventually that they will come. But we know very similar to the other retail uses, we've had struggles with hotels seeing the viability of it at the moment. So we're going to have to. That's probably going to be the last parcel that's developed.
So a follow-on question to that: what kind of metrics do hotels, an upper scale hotel, look for in a site?
They're going to look for a larger traffic count on 84. They would look for a larger 135 mile demographic. The site actually makes some sense if for a hotel with Snow Basin and obviously the canyon and the ability to for access, the hospital, Weaver State. There's several things that I think would make some sense. Most of the hotels that you see are actually franchise driven. I wish I could say the hotels took a bigger risk, but they don't. So as a franchisee sees the viability of a particular site in an area that they have acquired, that's when this will become attractive to the franchisee as the development starts, and then they'll push towards the Marriott or whomever it may be to flag it. So going directly to the hotels is a little challenging. They kind of sit still. But we have talked to several of the franchisee sellers. They don't have any in this particular zone that have interest in this particular site as of yet. But I do believe that'll change. I mean, it's clearly on a freeway off ramp, and as people who don't have a ton of vision. I mean, if the hotel is going to be the last one in, they'll want to see the fuel, they'll want to see the retail, they'll want to see the housing. They want to see the opportunity to be able to buy essentially a pad. So the rest of the development is likely going to have to happen before the franchisee would be comfortable with the idea of putting a hotel there. But I don't have any doubt that a small hotel between the hospital, the canyon, Weaver State, I mean, I have no doubt that it would do just fine, just like the one there at the mouth of the canyon is incredibly full.
So I think that was some of the public comment that I was receiving back, and it's one of my concerns as well, is getting the right hotel there. I mean, not all hotels are created equally. I'm not going to go into naming any one of them, but we definitely don't want to see something that comes in that is right out of the box difficult. So that I appreciate your answers on those questions. And
no, so to answer your question, I mean, for the development as a whole, I mean, I understand what you're saying. You certainly don't want to see a truck stop motel. That would and that's why we've kind of developed this. The people that would live in this residential development that's being proposed don't want to see a motel there either. And the developers, in order to be able to sell the houses there, don't want to see a motel there either. So I would imagine something more of a Spring Hill Suites, something. It certainly wouldn't be I mean, you know what it's going to be off a freeway, 3 stories tall. It's going to be a hotel that services, I don't know, maybe 90 rooms. I mean, it's going to be a relatively small hotel to stay underneath to stay in the 3-story zone. You know what I mean? Because you guys don't want to see it 4 stories. It'll be kind of a small service hotel that would service that hospital and like I said, Weaver State, South Weaver, Mountain Green, quite frankly, and for people who are coming here to travel to go to Snow Basin or take advantage of kind of this area's uniqueness.
Okay, and then not to sway too far from the hotel, I'm curious to know about the site access for the hotel. Do you see that changing at all in any iteration of a plan? I mean,
did you say the site access?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to step on you, Marty. I don't think we're necessarily glued to any particular. It seems like that would make the most sense as you have a curb cut and access directly across the street from this. That just kind of made sense that would be where you'd put it. But I don't think anybody's.
Yeah. I was just curious to know if how firm you were on it. So that makes sense to me. I understand there's flexibility there, but just how firm.
So one of reading through the comments and just my thoughts, and then I'll turn it back over. I've read through a lot of the comments from the citizens, and a lot of them contradict one another a little bit. We'd like to see more retail, but we don't want, and then other ones we don't want any traffic. I mean, the idea of having that initial curb cut right there gets people to turn into this site before they even get to the main road. So the majority, again, the majority of the traffic I think that you would see for this entire development, for the most part, would certainly never go past 5650. But certainly a large portion of it for maybe for both fuel and for the hotel. I mean, they would barely be off the freeway before they would be turning into this site. I don't see them adding to a lot of interior traffic, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't see why people who would be turning off to go to the fuel station or turning off to go to the hotel, or even turning off to go to the strip center to get their hair done or whatever it is they were doing there, or turning off to go to the storage units, or turning off to go to the residential, why they would go beyond 50 South. I don't see why they would continue further down that road. So just my thoughts is with regard to the concerns of the traffic patterns and the amount of traffic entering South Weber City.
Thank you. And I guess before I move off the hotel, is there maybe offered up to other members of the planning commission if there's questions on the hotel?
You asked what I was going to ask, Taylor, so.
Okay. So I wanted to ask a question.
I'd like to make.
Oh.
Sorry, this is Nate.
Oh, Nate, sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment regarding the hotel. One of the ideas with the concept of the hotel, as we did research, the Best Western, there in Uena, Lower Uena is very full. There's very low vacancy there. There is no hospital that services the no hotel that services Ogden Regional Hospital, and there really seems to be a lack of hotel presence in that area. So it was just something, as the city was really looking for retail concept, and we thought that was something that would work there. Because one of the things we've kind of mentioned this whole time is the city wants to see retail, and we're trying to think of things that will actually work, in that area. So, I mean, that's just to bring light to why we brought that in the first place.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Go ahead. Rob. I just noticed that Jessica's back on, and I certainly want to give her a chance to speak. I know there's been some technical difficulties, if that's okay with the commission.
Fine.
That works for me.
That works.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So my name's Jessica, and I'm here with Sierra Homes. I mean, I'm just not part of
Jessica, real quick, we need your full name and where you live so we can get that for the record.
I'm a resident of South Weber. I live in North Ogden.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Jessica Prestwich. I live in North Ogden. I'm not a resident of South Weber, but I do know that you guys lack the, I guess, townhome mixed use kind of thing, and that was something that was not wanted as much, and it's the same thing out here in the Harrisville area. But myself and my family actually moved into a townhome, and we have one strip of townhomes in Harrisville, and they don't want to add any more in Harrisville for some reason. But it's kind of the way everyone is, not everyone, but it's kind of the way people are going now. It's a lot less maintenance to take care of. It's good for the busy families and even the older people that are downsizing and everything. But I definitely think there's a need there for it, and we want to make it look good and something that you guys are proud of. So we want to work with you guys and do what you guys want and make it look good. But I definitely think it'll look good and work out and be something the residents will like in the end.
Okay, cool.
So, Rob, can I ask her a quick question?
Sure.
So Jessica, it sounds like you're involved with the development. I'm just trying to understand your interest in this not being from South Weaver.
Yeah, so I work with Sierra Homes, and Sierra Homes is a partner in the development.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, Kim, I'd like to go back to opening up the comments for the Plan Commission. Is anybody else got a comment or like to discuss a certain part of this development?
So if I can, if there's no other comment on the hotel, I'd like to talk about the storage units next.
Absolutely.
As far as the hotel, one of the things you're going to need in the vicinity of a hotel is a restaurant. You know, people are going to come into a hotel here in South Weaver and then have to drive back to Riverdale or South Ogden or Layton to get dinner or breakfast or anything like that. So if you're going to have a hotel, you're going to have a restaurant there to support it.
Sure thing.
We couldn't agree more. One of the reasons for the hotel was to help support that strip center. With the thoughts in that strip center, there would likely be at least one restaurant. That's
a good restaurant or a hamburger joint.
Right, absolutely.
Because you're not gonna be able to put even a Arby's or anything like that in that strip joint and call it a good restaurant.
Well, it's hard. It's so therein lies the trouble. The strip center, the retail center, there is. I mean, that's we don't have tenants ready to fill that up. There's a little bit of hope involved with that between the fuel station and the hotel that then a restaurateur would open up a restaurant in there and either take one or maybe two units in order to do that. But it's as you can imagine.
How many units are you proposing for the strip mall?
Excuse me?
How many units are you proposing for the strip mall?
Right now it's set up as 10,000 feet, which could be 2,500 square foot spaces. Likely it would be open shell, so you could have maybe two spaces would take 5,000 feet, and then two 2,500 square foot spaces. So it'd be 4, maybe 5 if they were 2,000 square foot units. That's still kind of to be determined. I wouldn't imagine they'd probably be less than 5 2,000 square foot units.
Taylor?
Yeah, so I'm curious to know about the storage units. What's the financial impact to the development if they are not allowed? If we decide not to rezone out parcel to allow for storage units?
Marty, I'll leave that to you.
That's a critical piece to have that there. And I think we can still have a conversation about it and say, okay, what has a similar value that's not storage units, but so we can have that discussion. We can also take a look at how do we make these storage units, this space, look attractive. There are a lot of storage unit places that have popped up, within the Wasatch Front that are incredibly attractive. That could be on par with, what you'd see in a really nice commercial subdivision. And so, if it's really the look and feel, we can address that and still provide that service of storage units. And I do want to pay just attention to a few of the comments about storage units. Yes, storage units do have a good payback, and that's a good thing. But I think the point that is missed about storage units is that storage units in the area, having called and talked to a number of storage units around, they're maxed out. they're tapped out, and storage unit owners are looking for more space to provide storage for the community. And so you know, I think that there are some people that have a stigma to storage units, but that is a community need.
So can you speak to that? Storage units having a good payback. Is that for the developer / business owner, or did you ask the question about city proceeds or city sales tax, or revenue rather?
Great, and you know, storage units are really a win-win situation in that. You know, we have storage unit owners right now that are local, that have approached me about you know, possibly partnering and putting this under contract you know, as soon as possible. What that does for me as a developer is that helps me get this into, you know, from a baby steps crawling point to running, to being sustainable commercial property, property that is generating you know, revenue, and you know, creating that tax base that the city you know, is really looking for. And so you know, as a developer, you know, I don't get any more or less you know, putting this in versus something else. But you know, if I can't get this piece sold off, well, you know, that's a risk and a liability to me. And so so having an attraction from both ends, from both the community and from the commercial side for that prospect. I mean, this piece right now is probably one of the most viable pieces of the property. But you know, we don't want to make this whole entire site storage units. That doesn't make sense either.
Right, and just having some experience in the surrounding community with some storage units. I know Layton City had a referendum on, a moratorium on approving storage units because they found that they actually have one of the highest per capita densities of storage units. And a lot of that has to do with Hill Air Force Base and the like, but they actually slowed down their approval of those based upon just market saturation. So yes, it's encouraging to hear you talk about how you have property owners, or business owners lining up to partner with you. So that's encouraging. But at the same time, I'm just a little nervous about that too, knowing how
we are not late.
Can be.
Yeah,
correct.
We're not Layton. We don't have the amount of density of storage units that they do. We don't.
Let me ask this, because I'm just curious. I mean, we all kind of like you mentioned with the hotel. I mean, there's a concern obviously with storage units and what kind of traffic you're going to receive. We had originally envisioned that a fair amount of the portion of the storage units would be dedicated more towards large storage units to try to service people that are going up and down the canyon with regard to RVs, boats, fifth wheels, side by sides. There'll obviously be other storage, which you know, based on what South Weber, you do have a fair amount of higher density townhouses just to the west of this. Obviously, there'll be townhouses within this development, and they all do require storage. None of them are really built to be self-stored. So the concept of this servicing people coming off I-84 who are coming in to grab their RV, or else also servicing the people that you've already, on the development you've already approved to the west, as well as this one, as well as others in South Weber. I mean, I really feel like this would be a pretty vital use. And so if there's a way to kind of frame it with walls and the type of you know, the cladding that you would use so it didn't look like your typical. I understand the concern of South Weber of what a typical storage unit can look like, but they can look a lot different. Semi-seamless. It's one of the reasons we kind of pushed it over to that far edge against the power substation, which is also an unattractive thing that's not going anywhere. So that was kind of our thought process by moving that storage there. It would create a buffer with that substation. And if we cladded the walls and had kind of privacy walls, so from the street, it just looked like wall, as opposed to like you would be concerned with chain link fence and storage units. I understand the concern of the look,
Yeah,
but I think we can address the look.
Bump out walls, parapets that go taller, a lot of things there. Concrete treatments that really give it a real, upper class look. There's a lot of treatments that can be done with, concrete tilt that just, give it a wood feel or a stone feel or brick feel, without, sacrificing, lots of cost in construction there.
No, I appreciate you answering my questions. I didn't have any other questions on the storage units.
I'm a little shocked with the storage units. You didn't put them back towards the interstate, so there's not so much frontage on 6650, and maybe utilize more of the under the power lines for that. It's just kind of shocking to me. I don't know if it's a valid comment, but
no, Rob, I thought the same thing. As I look at the plan, I don't know if I'd want to buy a townhome that backs up to the freeway in my backyard and then huge power lines in my front yard. I would almost, like to see the commercial be pushed back toward the freeway and then have the townhome serve as a buffer that's to the neighborhood to the south across 6650 there.
Right.
And and those are great comments, comments that we could incorporate in this plan for sure. Like I said, we threw this up on the wall to kind of just generate these comments and just to see if we can, really, grab a hold of the viability. I think those are fantastic suggestions.
So Rob, can I ask another question?
Yeah, please.
So I believe in our last meeting when we discussed this, that there was a mention that this would be done in phases, and that you weren't looking to develop this all at once, but to kind of parcel it out. And that what would be the first or first two phases of this? And before you answer, let me ask you my reasoning for that. Because we've heard all along that this development won't work without the townhomes. But if those first one or two phases is actually commercial, and we see some success with the commercial, would that change phase 3, 4, and 5 or whatever? I mean, if other businesses are seeing the success of the commercial, wouldn't more businesses be interested in developing more commercial?
Great questions. And that's I guess we could take that conversation to the next level a little bit more, following this. I do know that, we could start on these commercial applications, i.e. the storage units and the gas station concept, pretty quickly. But I think, the vested rights of building residential is a critical component to making this project financed properly. And so I think that we need to make sure that we keep the percentages there with kind of what we're looking at to make this work. Bringing this concept in, it's being able to create, food for or energy for the project, to begin and also to end. If we have a residential component here, obviously, you know, that's a stakeholder in the project that, you know, is expecting to create their own pro forma and payback for this. And if that is something that's not fixed and something that's variable, where you know, we would have to carve that down in the future, you know, based on what we think, you know, the mixture ought to be later. That doesn't give them a whole lot of confidence they're going to get what they were expecting, you know, in their return long term. So you know, I'm willing to have that conversation with our partner to see if you know, we can kind of Lego block you know, that residential portion and see if that's potential. But you know, I think that would, you know, just coming from my point of view as a developer, I would be weary to do that, especially if I had investors that were expecting a certain return and you know, saying, well, you may have to take a haircut later on, you know, for the benefit of this other portion. So does that help answer that question a little bit?
Yeah, that does.
Now, following on that comment though, in that question, I did feel the anxiety of a lot of residents that, you know, if the commercial didn't do well, this whole thing is eventually just going to turn into residential. And, you know, that is something that will not happen with this project. You know, the residential is purely there to make the commercial work. And so the commercial will begin as this residential begins, and it's not going to push one way or the other. And what we want to have here is something that where everybody has an expectation, you know, for both of those, and making this work for everybody is critical to you know, the success of this project starting. So yeah, we won't see this sliding into all residential. This really is a hand-in-hand symbiosis of zone combination.
Marty, let me ask you this, and then I'm just kicking tires here, so it's nothing serious. But
yeah,
what if you drop the whole hotel idea, and we create a daybreak type of an environment? You know what I'm saying? That kind of has a park, a community, little town feel. You know, maybe with some historical elements with it. You know, the gas station being out a little bit, you know, being, you know, within the property, but not part of this, not part of a daybreak type feel.
So a little bit
is that a possible deal?
Street. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've spent a lot of time in Daybreak. I know what you're talking about. They have kind of their little Sodo district there,
right?
Or Soda district, south of Daybreak, as they call it. It's cool. It's got a little bike shop. It's got a little karate studio. It's got a little home furnishings area. It's got you know, a medical center. Absolutely, you know, and kind of marrying those, you know, really bringing this concept together. This whole convenience and accessibility concept is not just a trend. It's something that existed, you know, decades ago, when cities were really starting to industrialize, and you know, the past 20 years, this has been really kind of the movement as people have, you know, come to realize a lot less needs as far as surviving and spending more of their time in experiential living.
Yeah, I mean, so if I was to look at this, you know, I see maybe shrinking. I tell you, the whole idea of the storage units just kills me. But at least shrinking that, moving it towards the back, under the power lines, drop the hotel, do a daybreak type of a feel to it. based around some South Weaver history with the Kingston thing. I think that would be a great thing. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm just talking out loud.
No, I love it. Great comments.
So I think that would make it easier to swallow some housing. Although I will tell you, as a city, we've already decided where our housing's going and where our commercial is going. Well, we've decided that this is where the commercial is going and the housing's going somewhere else. And so it's still a hard pill to swallow with the commercial, or excuse me, with the housing part. It's not high density or low density for me. That's not what we wanted to put there. We wanted to put commercial there. Again, we have housing spots, but I understand the whole pencil thing. I get it. But I think if we created something more unique, a Daybreak, a Station Park-ish type feel, maybe with some dentist office, the bike shops, the bakery, the maybe some office on an upper level on some of them, something like that is kind of more what I envision down there than what's being proposed.
Rob, what you're talking about is what was proposed back in 2008 with the economic development plan that the city had prepared. And that shows that this area, the whole area of South Weaver, has the potential for commercial development. Stevens property, the Paul's property, Ray's property, all have good potential for commercial development. And I keep calling back to that plan and looking at it, and the comments we're getting today is that there's not enough cars on the road to go there. That plan says there's plenty of cars. We've got the population, we've got the transient along the freeway that are going to be looking for places for shops. We could bring, with good commercial development in there that is not in the local area. I'm talking, things like Patagonia, REI, places like that. They're all down in Salt Lake. There's nothing up in this area. And if somebody's going with a REI or Patagonia or similar type economic development in their commercial development, it would be an attractant to people to visit that area to do their shopping instead of driving to Salt Lake or anywhere else.
Well,
And, it's commercial. The property is going to be zoned commercial or commercial highway. 70% of the comments that we got today said that they are in favor of some commercial development in there. Most of them said they didn't want to see any high density development in that area. And that's from our citizens that we have to respond to.
I read those same comments, and I don't disagree. There were people that obviously said.
So you agree with me then?
I agree with you that they said they didn't want residential, but they also said they didn't want traffic, and they also said they wanted commercial. All those things don't square. With regard to I'm not trying to be a downer.
It depends upon how it's laid out as to how the traffic problem and stuff like that. It could be addressed that it'd be a non-issue or just a minor issue. The economic from commercial development would be much better for the city, and then 48 units of multiple housing.
Right, but I
do commercial. You agree with me? Thank you.
I do commercial real estate every day. The idea of Patagonia or any of those things aren't growing. They're dying.
No, they're not. They're going big time.
They're not growing big time. They are dying.
Outdoor recreation is the biggest benefit to this state.
They're growing online. They're not growing in boxes, and that's just a fact. And why I wish it were different. It just isn't. And when you have Riverdale 1.5 miles further down the road,
3 miles,
10 miles, it's fine. I understand what you'd like to see there, but the reality is that this is not going to happen here. It just isn't.
Is it not going to happen because the developer says it's not going to happen?
It's not going to happen
Tim,
because
for
reality says
Wes,
it's not going to happen.
So-
That's just a fact. That's just a fact. And
So help me understand, is it, Carter, is the Daybreak idea out, or is it the Patagonia REI thing out? I think I've gotten two issues
the
here.
REI Patagonia is never going to happen. The
Okay.
Daybreak can happen. I don't disagree with that concept of small community-based retail to service that type of feel. That I think actually has viability. Large retailers is over. That is a ship that has sailed. It's over.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, everybody's Amazoning these days.
You're right. That's just never going to happen.
And if you take a look at east side of town, you know, the irony is there's a sign up there for retail that says available December of 2016. Retail is very sensitive. It is very sensitive. Inches matter with retail.
Sure.
This, you know, we can try a Field of Dreams, build it, and they will come concept, and it won't work. There are other places nearby that are so much more viable, and these companies aren't going to come to South Weber just because of the charm of South Weber. They're going to make these decisions based on math. And if you talk to them, they will tell you this is not the best option for our store. Even if there was a place that was close by, they would take that other place that has higher counts.
Right. We're not going to be able to compete with Riverdale Road, and Riverdale Road is dying.
No, it's not.
Not really.
No,
No.
it's not. It's
No.
growing.
It is dying.
No,
it is dying.
No.
So before I moved to South Weaver, I lived in Riverdale. I was on the planning commission in Riverdale. It's a boom over there. So that's a fact, if you want to talk facts. So now you guys, if I can just be completely transparent, you're not doing a good job selling this to anybody. And the thing is, what I hear from residents is there's nothing here for residents. There's nothing. We won't use the hotel. Gas stations, most people already go to Maverick. There's nothing here for us. And we're the ones who are living across the street from it. We're the ones who are going to be driving by. We're the ones who are impacted, but there's really nothing for us. You know, yeah, there's a strip mall there, but what's going in there? There's so many question marks, and I think that's why many of the residents are having trouble accepting this or even willing to consider it, because there's more question marks than answers. And I honestly think most residents would rather see this stay a field than to have it be a mixed use development. And so, you know, if we're being transparent, I think that's what many of the residents are feeling.
And Gary, I appreciate you sharing that. You know, if I could maybe just give a 30-second pitch to the culture and community of South Weber. If we had a gas station that came in with zero ethanol gas and a snowmobile repair shop in part of the strip mall, and you know, bigger units in the storage units that can house these snowmobiles, I can tell you that is part of the South Weber culture. You know, they'd love to have zero ethanol gas right there. You know,
They already do. Maverick's got it.
Sure, but you know, for those on the west side of town, you know, going through the brain damage of going all the way down South Weaver Drive all the way to the end and doing there, you know, this gets them on the freeway faster, and you know, could mean an extra 15 to 20 minutes, you know, out in the boonies. I think the idea here is to create, you know, a real outdoor gateway to
with houses.
Yeah, and if you live there, that's even quicker.
Yeah, that's really represents the outdoor opportunities, a bunch of houses.
But to be
Yeah,
fair, you can't build this
people need to
without
live
market conditions being what they need to be to make it go, right? Am I wrong in this? Like, we're all, this
You're
development
100%
comes and
correct.
goes based upon market condition. And right now, there's no market condition for a piece of commercial development this big that makes anything work. So I guess.
And if, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, listening to the residents, you know, other members of my community, I think it really needs to come down to let the data speak. You know, if we let emotions speak, we're going to find a defunct property that doesn't provide taxes, that is high vacancy and run down. If it's all highway commercial, or blank field, which again still doesn't provide taxes in commercial revenue, and so we need to be sure that we're following the logic from the right source. Yeah, and we need to do a good job of selling that. I agree with you, Gary. But this concept isn't set in stone. You members of the planning commission.
And I realize that, and I think the planning commission realizes that, and we're trying to help the public realize that too. That this is just an idea.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm glad we're having these discussions, so we can come to the best option, because we understand that the city doesn't own this property. The owner wants to develop it, and we want to work with them, but again, people move here to South Weaver for a reason, and there are people who live across the street from this development who have been there for 30, 40 years, probably even longer, and this is going to be a big change in the community, and that's why the city is so passionate that they want to get this right. And I agree with you. Numbers and facts, we need to see that. Well, it'd be nice to see those, because you're just telling them to us, and not that I don't trust you, but I don't really trust anybody when they're trying to sell me something. And I think the community would really like to see that, and it may be helpful in educating all of us. Because again, I'm not a developer. I don't do anything with real estate. I'm not a businessman. I'm a historian. And so when you say, this doesn't pencil, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that way. And not everybody in this community does think that way. So I think the community and myself, we're the ones who are going to be here forever.
Yeah, and I'm part of that we.
You are.
Yeah. And well, I think, in kind of taking that to the next level, we want to be as transparent as possible. And we can share that data, and we'd love to. What we're showing you here is something that, like you said, is something that we've made claims on, but we haven't, for the sake of simplicity, haven't shown the data. And we'd like to show that. We'd like to show you, very open book, how this makes sense, and where those suggestions that come from the community of this is what we want, but help them understand that, to fit in that pretty dress, you need to do the certain things in diet and exercise to fit in that pretty dress. And if those things can't happen, here are the reasons why in data.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Gary, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Taylor. I've spoken a lot.
No, I was just going to say, I guess that's the line of questioning that I started with. I just need to know the market forces at bear here. So, I mean, you've mentioned that the storage units are a big deal. You mentioned the residential is a big deal. Hotel, maybe, once you get the traffic counts up. Can you speak to the gas station and the retail components separately, please, if you don't mind. You know, what do you have an idea of a gas station that's already looking to partner with you? What's the likelihood of a gas station going in? And then also the same question for the retail spaces. You know,
Great
what kind of tenants have expressed an interest there?
Sure. So Maverick has entered into an LOI with us to come here. They would like to either buy or lease that space. And so anyone who's curious about Maverick's business model, yes, Maverick in many places, especially in you know, up and down the Wasatch Front, they have stores. They have storefronts that are right across the street from each other in some cases, and they see this as a very viable corner for them to do business for both the community and the transient traffic.
Hey, Marty,
yeah.
I don't mean to step on you, and
No, go ahead.
I appreciate that we've thrown out the name Maverick, but they've asked that to not be necessarily displayed, so I would ask that it not leave this meeting by any of the people involved.
Well, it's a public meeting.
Well, and I get that. I mean, I'm just telling you, it's a fuel stop. Maverick is interested. We do have an LOI. They are very interested in that corner. That's a fact. I
don't mean to tease out who's interested or anything like that. I'm just trying to figure out market forces. So to say that you have a tenant who's interested in the pad, or
the current parties I think that are most viable is obviously the fuel, obviously the storage units. I think the retail strip center would start to lease out, certainly as the residential was being built. I think the majority of the retail strip center would be leased out in a relatively short amount of time. The hotel is honestly the unknown. I mean, I think a hotel would work just fine there. If the city said they didn't want to see a hotel and wanted something else there, I wouldn't be opposed to that. That's kind of a pad. I mean, we can obviously modify the site plan to make that work. The concept of a daybreak, slightly different type of commercial feel to it, I think could potentially work. That is the portion that's a little bit of an unknown as to how long it will take for that particular site to fill up, at least with the hotel. I don't know about the other type of options that were kind of floated out here this evening.
Well, in Carter, you know the market, right? As I heard you say, this is your what you live in, eat, sleep, and breathe.
Right.
What kind of retail can we experience?
You're gonna have individually owned retail. It'll be highly unlikely that you would see much franchisee style retail or corporate. Be very similar to what you see on the other end of town. They'll be locally owned type of run operations. You may see a corporate, just like you do on the other side of town, maybe a franchisee of, you wouldn't see this one obviously, but like Little Caesars, things of that nature. You could see some franchisee, maybe an insurance company, maybe a nail salon, beautician, small restaurant that would, I think, actually do quite well there. Once that was established, I think they'd actually be overwhelmed. But that would be what I would expect. You certainly wouldn't see an Olive Garden or something along those lines there. We just don't fit those parameters. I mean, kind of like I'd mentioned in the last meeting, we've put the site in front of, you name it, everybody. And I just can't get any feedback. The demographics and the traffic counts do not work for a retailer at a corporate level. It's in front of everybody from
Trader Joe's.
The Trader Joe's to
In-N-Out Burger,
In-N-Out. Yeah, I mean, it's in front of everybody, and I think it works for all of them. I think a Trader Joe's would kill it there, but they won't do it. I think a grocer would actually do well there. They won't do it. In-N-Out Burger, I think would kill it. They'd service all of Morgan County. They'd service all of South Weaver. they've said no. I mean, they said no as fast as they could say no.
So I actually like what you're saying, having more local businesses. I mean, I'm not a franchise guy. And I think, Burley Burger here in South Weaver shows that those types of things can be successful here in South
I
Weaver.
agree.
So
I
like,
love this
I like
site.
that.
So is it possible to draw something up, lose the hotel, draw up something that's a community type feel thing with the small businesses? I mean, even have Maverick's convenience store maybe be part of that feel as an anchor. I guess that's the word you use
Sure.
with those, and then maybe a park, a little pond, and then let's figure out how we can move the storage units to the back and make the residential part work. Is that something that we can get on a cocktail napkin and see what it looks like?
Marty?
We can get with our architect and start and from these comments, that's the intention. Absolutely. That's exactly what we'd like to do is kind of take this feedback and input and start to kind of push and pull a little bit and see if we can kind of optimize this site so we can make an induced fit for all sides.
Right. I mean, the cookie cutter is not going to happen here, but
Absolutely.
if something cool that nobody else has, that might sell, right?
Right.
So
agreed. Yeah. I got this under the door here at 2:30 a.m. in the morning last week. I'm very motivated to take this to the next level. And I'm feeling like we have a bit of enthusiasm to see where this could go. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, I'd like to see something way cool and something different that makes residents feel that that's in South Weaver, like station parks in Farmington. We know that station park, right? And I'm not saying create a station park, but create something that's our own.
And so Marty, sorry, Rob.
No, go ahead, Taylor.
I was just going to mention, we talked about it, and a lot of our residents' comments were to this effect. We want a place. And just conceptually on paper, on the layout right now, I see a lot of coming and going. People in a hotel coming and going, gas station people come and go. Even the storage units come and go. They don't stay. And I think to Rob's earlier point, or I'm sorry, it was Gary that made the point, there's nothing in this about us. About South Weaver residents. And so how do we integrate the neighborhood? How do we incubate small business owners and make this a place where people want to come and stay and have it a gathering point is I think a really great concept, a really great idea that I just as is, I don't see. And I know you can rearrange the site in a way that we can get something like that. But I think that would be my feedback. I don't know if it's any different from any of the other planning commissioners.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, kind of, I guess to summarize here, with the understanding that this combination is kind of the secret sauce to really make this work, economically, to make it work, from a community side of things, more ecumenically, creating this sense of place and this more community feel. Absolutely. I'll get with the team and see if we can kind of create that. And I think we've crossed the threshold of saying, hey, this R7 zoning portion, being a critical piece, if we can make the commercial really feel like a sense of place, this R7 could really, feel cool to the community, but also, be, worthy of getting this piece rezoned. Am I overstepping in saying that?
We're not going that far yet, but I think there's something to be seen. And let's see what comes about.
So if I can, I think some of my questions to make me feel a little easier about a statement like that, Marty, would be directed towards staff. And that would be, I mean, the hotel is, yeah, we'd be giving up a lot of tax revenue. I'm curious about the revenue generation off of storage units. You know, I know those are studies that we probably haven't done yet, but I'm curious to know, ultimately, this is a critical piece of commercial property within the city. This is something that we
Absolutely.
need to generate revenue off of. And I just don't know, from a revenue generation standpoint, what the city's outlay might look like. And I know we tried to attempt that in our last discussion, but I guess I'm looking more something from either Barry or somebody that can give us an idea of what kind of tax revenue generation we could experience with a hotel, without a hotel, you know, how much we could generate off of the storage units, etc. I know what we can anticipate what we can get from Maverick. That one's pretty simple in the strip mall. But if we can get those couple things, try to figure that out, I think that would really help me.
Well, let me just state that right off the bat that storage units aren't going to do a whole lot revenue-wise for the city. They increase the value of the land a little bit, so the property tax goes up somewhat, but they don't generate sales tax. There's very little revenue coming off of there, and there's a little bit of a additional policing effort that has to take place because they're there, because they become a target for some people. So there's no revenue gain there. There's no benefit real to the city other than those residents that would use them. Of course, then it's a benefit to them. From a hotel standpoint, that can be a pretty good revenue for the city. We have adopted transient room tax. And if that hotel were full every night, that would be a great benefit. And as has been mentioned, that's the kind of thing where people come off the freeway, drop right into there, and then leave without ever impacting the city very much. And if there were a restaurant right there that they could patronize while they're here, it would be even more so. So that's the potential is great for revenue there.
So I think it's that kind of comment, that kind of impact that I hesitate in taking the hotel off. I would look to have it more appropriately scaled in a future discussion.
Scaled and the right brand.
Correct.
We're
I don't
obviously,
know if they can really do anything about that, but I think, yeah, I'd hate to see the opportunity to go on something that would generate revenue like that for the city. I'm curious to know, you know, now that you have our feedback and comments, you know, what is it that you can do to maybe address scale to make this, you know, like a place, a destination, not only for the people who are going to come into a hotel and the like, but for the residents.
Taylor, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying about scale. Are you talking about the scale of the hotel or the whole site?
No, I think the hotel. Thanks for clarifying that point. I know I'm trying to look back at my notes. We were talking about 90 rooms, 1 to 3 stories. You know, what other, I'm curious, to Rob's point, what's outside the box? What's unique? What other options might exist for a hotel within South Weber that maintains that sense of, you know, small town feeling that we have here, that people want to hold on to?
Well, just keep in mind when you're talking about that you also mentioned that you want an upscale type hotel.
And I get that, yeah.
And they're going to have some standards as to the number of rooms that they're going to require and so forth.
And, you know, I was just trying to put that in a way that doesn't say that we want a bogus hotel. You know, we don't want a Motel 6 down the road, not to say anything about that, right? I guess I'm curious to know, you know, given that these gentlemen know the real estate market, the commercial real estate markets, what other options out there exist? And not just the build out, you know, simple pad of 3 stories, 90 rooms configurations.
Right. So That's a good question. I don't know how much flexibility major hotel chains have. They're very stringent. They're very strict on kind of on their product type and how it's built and what it's supposed to look like. So that's a give and take.
Okay.
I mean, but I'll be frank with you. I mean, I've never built a hotel. I have been around them. I've been around developers that have worked with them, and they are stringent. Whether you fall into the, which line you fall into under Holiday Inn or which line you fall into under Marriott or whomever it may be. They kind of like, oh, that's going to be a this or that's going to be a that, and then they kind of have this model that they thrust upon the franchisee that fits that. So they could be more flexible than that. I just don't know.
Okay.
That's how I've seen it. But I don't want to marry myself to that because I like I said, I've never developed a hotel itself. My intention with this particular site was to bring in a hotel developer when the time was right. Once the site had grown into a situation where it became obvious. But that's about as far as I can speak to that. As far as I know, Marty may have a little more knowledge to that. I don't know, but that's kind of my thought. We won't have much control over the hotel site once it's out there, and I won't deny you that. As far as Motel 6 versus Hampton Suites versus, it's hard. That particular part of the development is hard because it's outside of my expertise.
And I want to go back.
I actually I used to work for Hyatt Hotels and Resorts, and the Hyatt Hotel chain has become very. I mean, they are mostly a 4-star hotel, and they've created brands. They've proliferated their brands to accommodate for smaller communities. Their Hyatt House, and Andaz and such. But still, they if you look at any of these, basically Hyatt is a hotel management company. They come in with their flag and work with either a developer or a site owner and take over the operations of the building for return to the owner. They build and hold internally some of their sites. And so with that being the case, we can definitely strike up the conversation with some of these bigger units. But I can tell you, their locations are in areas where they absolutely know that they are going to have enough traffic. They don't kind of pitch it to an area that's in a high growth mode and say someday we're going to make it. They can't build a business model around that. And so to Carter's point, they're the last to the party because in order for them with their high labor component, they need to have an absolutely bulletproof business model to play with, for tourism and stays per night and keeping that rent rate up.
Marty, I appreciate your insight, and it sounds like you have the experience necessary just to give us an idea of what's possible on scaling that site. So no, I appreciate it. And I also wanted to say I have nothing against Motel 6. I just rolled off the tongue, so I apologize. So anyway, yeah, that's about all that I had on comments and questions.
Tim, what say ye?
Yeah, I've got a few comments. You did say Tim, right, Rob?
I did.
Okay. You know, first thought is just in general, you know, this entire parcel's been designated as commercial on our master plan for, geez, over 20 years. And so, you know, unless I have some directive from city council that we no longer need this commercial area, I'm pretty hesitant to just start putting residential in it. Just thinking out loud. I don't see a residential as being a need for South Weber City in this particular area, and I don't see storage units as another need for South Weber City as far as the residents go. I do think that we have this one location in the west end as commercial, and so I'm just very hesitant to let any of it go unless it is commercial, unless we're getting some sort of directive from city council that, yeah, it's okay to scale down on the commercial in that area. Just as far as the planning commission goes, we follow the general plan and it's commercial. So I don't know how I would go against that, just off the top of my head. And then as we're,
for
you know,
a blank field.
What's that?
I said, get excited for a blank field. That
yeah, I don't mind the blank field, and I don't think most residents mind it too much.
Sure.
So Tim, can I ask you a question on that? Sorry.
Yeah, Taylor, you can.
Yeah. So I guess what do we envision going in on 18 acres that is composed of commercial?
Yeah. So my thought is everybody was talking, and I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. You know, they have some initial interest in maybe a fuel station. That seems to be a positive there. And there was some initial that, boy, with that fuel station, you might have another business that would feed off of that, whether it be a food establishment, or somebody mentioned something about snowmobiles, or something, you know, you might have another business that would feed off of that fuel station. And then another business feeds off of that fuel station, and another business feeds off of that business. Well, people were talking about, well, at some point, yeah, you're going to have that hotel there, and they're going to want a restaurant, and they might have a need for something else. And suddenly, as the developer was even talking about all the different types of businesses that would go there, I don't know where they would go, because you've already built it out with residential. So where were all these businesses that you were talking about that would eventually come even be put, because there is no space to put them? So I was a little confused with that, and I'm absolutely fine with a master plan of this area, and you start with a fuel station. That's phase one, and then you have you know, phase two is the next business, and phase three is another business, and you just phase businesses that service the residents of South Weber and feed off of Interstate 84. And yeah, it's not a development that happens overnight. That's we've seen that already. It doesn't happen overnight in this particular area. But I'm just not ready to, I'm not completely convinced that we just sell out to residential and storage units. I don't see those as being necessary for the South Weber City. I liked what Rob was talking about, having that, you know, that historical little district in this area with businesses that could revolve around that. And I don't see that anywhere on this plan. And if you start to have that, there's not going to be space for residential. You know, I don't like the look of that strip mall in the location it is right there. It should go around the hub. You know, you have one central access with a roundabout, and there should be businesses all around that hub. And then if that hub needs to, you know, extend further in another roundabout, you have more businesses. This land isn't that large that we just want to completely lose it. So I'm just not being sold on needing this to be 50% residential and 25% storage units and 25% commercial. I'm just not sold on that at this point. So that's just my initial feeling. I know there's a lot of residents that have expressed interest, and I'm hopeful that they'll reach out and get involved and get involved with the developer and put in their abilities to make this be commercial or what they see it as being. I think there's an opportunity there for the citizens to be involved as to what they'd like to see, and hopefully they'll reach out to the owner of the property and get involved in this development. But that's my biggest concern, is what I'm seeing presented doesn't match up with what I'm being directed from City Council and our general plan. I don't see that coming together just initially, and maybe we can work towards that and see some phases that make more sense to me.
So Tim, I guess
I'm struggling.
Sorry, I feel like I think this is what we wanted developers to do. Just when we started talking about, the mixed use development concept, is that viable? How do we move forward with our commercial zones? I think this is what we wanted. We wanted developers to come to us and pitch what's viable, pitch what their best concept was, and work with us and be collaborative. So I guess, the City Council can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that was kind of, I thought, our direction, our directive. Yes, we know that maybe the proportions, the total quantities may not work as we've written them into the master plan. So let's allow the developers to come and tell us what's possible, what really is, what kind of levers we have at our disposal to come to a great development, not only for them, but for the city.
Yeah, so, this doesn't look like mixed use to me, though.
So this is more of like a horizontal mixed use, because you have a variety of uses within this.
This is just commercial and residential. It's not a mixed use.
What would you define mixed use being?
That's mixed use.
So just a thought on that. If there was a thought, if there was a thought that this could be a retail development, obviously the value of the property would be much greater than it is as a residential. Nothing I would like more than to think that this was going to be a retail development. That would certainly pencil a lot better for the developer. I guess I understand the concerns and I understand what the city wants, but the thought that the developer is turning away what is an obvious retail development for residential development is not what is happening. That would never happen. It would be wonderful if I felt like we could do a station park here and have it make money, because that would be much more profitable than 48 townhouses. I'm retreating from that fact because it's a fact. I'm retreating from the idea of a 17-acre commercial development because it's not possible. Not because I wouldn't like it better. It would be much more lucrative. So I don't want, what I don't want is for the planning commission to think that this is that the concept, not necessarily the site plan. That can be manipulated, but the concept that we're pushing against that amount of retail is because we're going to make more money doing residential. That's not the goal. To be Homer Katrubis and have a 15-acre site on Riverdale Road that he's got with all his little inlines is much more lucrative than 48 townhouses. The reason we're here pitching this is because that's what the site will support, not because that's the most lucrative avenue. I want to make sure everybody understands the motivations here. I'm not trying to shoot retail for the sake of shooting it. I'm shooting it because it won't work. It just won't work. And so I just want everybody to understand the developer's motivations is not to maximize it by saying residential is the only thing is the most lucrative model. It's not. It's the most realistic model.
Carter, I appreciate you explaining it to us that way. I'm not sure if we've had anybody quite explain it to us quite like that. So I think that's valuable feedback. And I was just going to say too, like we talked about a daybreak concept, and I think it's important to point out that Rio Tinto owned the property in which they developed on. It wasn't leveraged when they went to go develop, and we need to make sure that the economics make sense. And that we're understanding the push-pull factors for what kind of development is being proposed now, because I think we have, from what I'm hearing, and I might be the dissenting view here, but we have a willing developer to work with the city to give us something that we want, and we just need to understand how this development goes for them. So that's all I wanted to say.
Jim, you have anything else?
I think one thing we need to look at is, as far as the zoning of this property, the last 3 years at our get-together between the Planning Commission and the City Council, where we talk about these various issues, it's been well over the majority of the people saying that this property needs to remain commercial. And even with the general plans and the public meetings, the vast majority of the people have come back and said, yeah, that needs to be a piece of commercial property. And that's what the citizens of the city are saying. That's what the Planning Commission, that's what, and the City Council have said in the past. This property is best for the city to be commercial.
Anecdotally, it's like being in a snowball fight with too many snowballs in your arm that you can't even throw one.
Gary, you have a thought?
Yeah, so I want to address something that I am an expert in now, and that's history. This is a historically significant site for the community. It's most likely the location of where the fort actually was. We'd have to do some additional research in that. A lot of the comments from residents that we received, and also that I saw on Facebook throughout the day, was to preserve and commemorate that history. I'm the first to admit that you don't make money with history. And so I would never recommend, well, let's rebuild the fort or do something like that. But I'm wondering if the landowner would be willing to possibly allow some students from a local university to do some archaeology and see if we could find some more information about the history before this land gets kind of dug up and developed.
Sure thing.
Gary, I agree with you on that. When I worked at state parks, the big thing on the historic sites was they're a drag on finances.
Yeah,
big time. As far as the historic of this, if we go by NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act, all we have to do is identify this was the site of a historical event, and we identify it. That's it. We can go ahead and do whatever we want after that.
We are excited and really encouraged by preserving the historic aspects of this site. I wish that we could have presented something here with this initial concept that had a nod to that, because right now I want to really express to all of you on the Planning Commission that we want to include that as part of this development. Yeah, I think that we're trying to bring to you the best mix that will work. I don't see this land supporting long term a whole 18 acres, 17 acres of commercial. It just doesn't match it doesn't beat out any of the other spots for industrial, commercial, office in surrounding areas that have higher counts. And I think South Weaver's charm is also its Achilles heel on that.
I would
Hey,
agree
Marty,
with you. I mean, it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't pencil to have it go all commercial. I totally agree with you. But it doesn't seem like this particular plan is allowing for much, it's not allowing for really any expansion commercially.
I mean, if we were to take those 2.42 acres of storage and make that into retail space, we would not fill it. We would not fill it.
What does that mean? You won't fill it?
Like if we were to say, okay, you know, we're going to make a strip mall that's inclusive of the 1.82 acres of strip mall space and the 2.42 acres that otherwise would be storage units. You would not find enough tenants to fill that whole space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm looking for a bunch of ugly strip malls either. You know, I don't think I'm asking for that. You know, it just seems like
What are you asking for?
It needs to have some expansion for you know, a restaurant. You know, there's no expansion there. There's you know, that strip mall just allows for a couple of businesses. That's not a standalone restaurant or anything like that. There's just not a lot of flexibility for business. You've got that strip mall that might accommodate a couple of very specific things.
So let me see if I'm listening to what you're saying, because you know, kind of part of my homework from this meeting is to you know, push and pull on this this model a little bit that kind of gets to the right recipe, the right secret sauce. And I think one of the things that you're asking for here is provide more retail opportunities, shrink the storage a little bit, and make it look a little bit more creative than just a strip of with storefronts. Am I reiterating that right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely heading down a better path, you know, as far as I'm concerned.
I think you make it historically looking around the whole Kingston Fort idea.
Sure.
Again, you know, I think that kind of a look with plenty of open space. Again, if South Weaver can call it their own and nobody else has it, and it's something pretty cool. I think it's a doable project, but as it sits today, I don't think it is at all.
Yeah, it doesn't have a unique
Agreed.
feel at all, but
I mean, the other thing, I mean, the city, I'm sure you're aware, just passed to allow the campground to just be right across the freeway. I mean, what a cool thing if some of these, you know, RVers stop and then they can kind of mosey around a cool little fort, get an ice cream, get a you know, a sandwich or something. I think there's some love there we can connect together.
Like Disneyland.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't compare it to Disneyland. Disneyland is awesome. Hopefully this will be awesome too, but that's a
yeah. Disneyland for Wes would be fly fishing and
I've already got all that.
So I think Marty, I think your homework is to go and you know, go and do and see what else we come up with. And I think you're right. Let's throw this pot out and we'll start with another recipe and see what happens, you know, and see how that tastes. I think you have an idea of the feel, and so.
And the thing is too, you're coming in on the heels of a couple other developments where the city has felt like they've been burned a little bit, or I should say the residents felt like they've been burned a little bit. So I think that's why the citizens are so passionate about this, because You know, this is their home, and
Understood.
they want to see something that's you know, not just valuable for others who are driving by on the freeway, but something that we can use and that we can benefit from as a city and as individual residents.
Okay.
I agree. I agree entirely. Yeah.
All right. Are we done with that discussion?
So I guess next, yeah. So just to make sure I know next steps, I guess we're gonna kind of maybe do this again with another concept further revised. Am I right in saying that?
I'm thinking, yeah.
So I guess I have a question for Marty. Marty, do you feel like you have what you need to come back and kind of wow us?
Yeah, yeah, and you've cut out. I hope that I think I've seen your mouse stop moving there. So I'll just reiterate real quick my homework here. Number one, you know, change the storage unit layout so that it wraps, you know, closer to where the freeway is.
Maybe just eliminate storage unit. That's probably going to be what's going to have to happen. It's either going to be the residential or the storage unit. I can't sell both.
I'm not sure if that's fair to them. As much as we like to say
that's going to be,
yeah, that probably won't work.
yeah, well, that is like the most viable part of the project right now.
Right.
So I mean, we'd be walking away from the project if like that piece goes away.
Okay.
It's also allowed in that zoning if it's changed on the general plan to that.
Okay.
In order to run the math out, I mean, without storage and without multifamily, I mean, we're at a dead end. Those two components are going to have to play a part to some degree. I mean, we've obviously made a substantial change in the multifamily in order to try to make this work, and modified the storage in order to make the math work. But without yeah, that I can't see how that could potentially pencil.
Well, as Barry said, the storage unit does not provide any significant tax revenue to the city. And I think that's going to be a critical factor in this, is how much tax revenue can we get off of this for the city?
But that's also a piece that adds a need to the community, which has been also a huge ask from the community.
Who asked? Because I didn't read that, but I'm just telling you, Carter. I'm telling you what politically I have to work with, right?
And I totally understand. I understand. I do. I understand. I understand politically that this is a heavy lift from every aspect, whether it's the hotel, whether it was the multifamily, or whether it's the storage units. I totally understand the ask, and I totally understand the residents' point of view as you know, they see the worst. They're going to see the worst of everything in the concept. I get it, but as the developer, you know, I can't build just a big park that
No,
makes sense.
and I get that. I'm just saying, I'm going to lay the cards out on the table, and here it is. If it is so cool that we got to have this, and it includes the housing and the storage units, then yeah, I guess we can make that work. But I mean, it's got to be cool.
Let us know what I'm saying? I do. Let us work on the cool factor. Let's see if we can modify. I mean, the hotel site, the acreage. I mean, the entire site plan can be manipulated to be more appealing from the street, or however you'd like to see it. It's the hotel site. I think there can be some serious wiggle room on how we adjust that to look and what the use might be. Maybe it's more retail. Maybe we like you mentioned, push the storage to a different portion of the property. I mean, all that is very flexible. It's the numbers. It's the numbers. And so if we can modify the hotel site, I'm a believer. I mean, the one thing I want you to all take away from this at the end of the day, I'm a believer that some retail does work there. I'm a believer that 84 feeds more of Mountain Green and Uinta and South Weber and South Ogden than all these people in their little cubicles would tell you that they do. I'm a believer that In-N-Out Burger works there. I'm a believer in all those concepts. And if I can wave a magic wand, I guarantee that they would work. I just can't get them to buy it.
Right.
So let us work on a site plan. Let us see if we can make it something that seems a little more appealing and unique. And I understand what you want. I'm just trying to do what I can. And Marty's on the same path, and so is Nate. And it's not that we don't believe in the site. I wish that were the issue. It's if I can't get it past the guy at the front desk, I can't make it happen.
Right. Right.
I'd love to. I mean, nothing I would love to own more than a retail center with a Trader Joe's in it. I mean, nothing would make me happier. I mean, I would be thrilled. So that all being said, let us work on the site and see if we can kind of modify it to something that would seem a little more appealing and send it back over to you guys and let's see where we go from there.
Okay.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. There's certain things we need, but I understand what you want, and let's see if we can find a common ground.
Well, and if we have something, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but I'm your biggest cheerleader.
And I appreciate that.
If it looks like it's something that's, you get it. So I don't need to say more, but yeah,
I appreciate it.
So
I do. We don't want to offend people in South Weber, but we're never going to make everybody in South Weber happy.
Well, and I get that too. But cool. Let me ask one more ask, and I know you're going. Ugh.
No, you're good.
What is the possibility of entertainment?
Please.
Like even a theater.
Ooh, tough.
Slim to none.
Yeah, really hard. Really hard. The demographics those guys require are challenging. They really like to be in urban settings, surrounded in people.
Okay.
Heavy demographic. Heavy. I mean, heavy is all I can say.
I just had to ask the question.
I think Rob is just missing the theater since they've been closed for 3 months.
Pretty much.
Well, so are we all.
I'm so mad they moved Top Gun to December. What the heck?
That's a bunch of bunk. I agree with you. I was livid about the whole thing.
Yeah. Jeez.
Hey,
Anyway.
Rob.
Yes. Sorry, Tim.
I don't want to keep this going, but maybe I do. And maybe I want a little more feedback, maybe from Taylor or the other planning commission members, just to understand, what do you want to see as far as the residential? What kind of look here they're proposing? Are these kind of a fourplex is what they're looking at? They want them to look like a single family home, but they're multifamily buildings. I mean, when you see a mixed use, are you seeing single family home look with spacing around it? Or would it be better to put it over to one side and have it be denser with more open space? Or, because we're not going to allow any more units. It's going to be the same number of units on the same acreage, whatever acreage we allow. But I just want to understand, what kind of a look do you see as far as the residential goes? I mean, this is next to the freeway. It's next to commercial. What's the look that seems to make sense? Or are we open to what they're presenting? It seems like it seems nice. It's a single family home look. So just trying to give them direction.
So
Oh,
Tim, I have to say that I like this look better than an apartment complex. I still don't know if I like it, but compared to what was presented before, it is better. Again, going back to my earlier comment, if housing has to be a part of this, I would like to see that more on the south end, so it can really be a buffer between the commercial and the neighborhood that's across the street.
It's good.
But again, I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer, but going back to Rob's comments, if this could have kind of a uniform historical look and a feel, even with the residential, I think that would be, I'm a historian, that might sell me a little bit more on it.
Right. So higher density, or not higher density, it's the same density, but you could maybe have the buildings closer if they had a better historical look. But we're still not wanting that single apartment looking metropolis building.
Yeah. So I'm open to seeing what they come up with. I don't like the apartment building approach. Again, this is better, but I still don't know if I like this, but I like it better than what we had before.
So if we're going to go for a historical type of development in there for the housing, if we're looking at log cabins.
No.
They fit. The other thing that with this is with the current health that the nation has with COVID, they're finding that a lot of the clusters is in areas where you've got people living close together, and that to me is puts the fourplex out the window, so to speak. People crammed in close together in that close quarters, any virus that comes up in the future is going to spread rapidly in that environment.
So Tim, that's your question, or answer your question. I don't have any problem with it. I think we have something very similar in Cedar Cove. It's a very similar density. It may not have the multifamily homes. So I really don't have an issue with the multifamily either. If it's duplexes or a townhome approach, I think what I hear time and time again is aesthetic. I think if we create an environment that is pleasing to the eye, it is going to, the concern about density kind of fades for me. And I think they actually are allowed a little bit more density than what they're asking for. So it wasn't much. I think it was like 1 or 2 units per acre. But no, I think the density is appropriate given the surrounding community, and what they proposed looks to me.
If anybody wants to take a look at kind of the example that we used, it's Daybreak in South Ogden. If you want to drive through there, it's easy to drive through. It's just off Chambers. It's a nice development. It was well done, and they do feel like single family. It's more meandering, and they do feel much more single family oriented. Just in case you want to take a look at least at what the example that we proposed.
Was the address of that Daybreak on here?
I don't know if it's on that particular slideshow, but if you were to type in Daybreak South Ogden, it'll take you right there. It's just right up the street from where you are. Just up Adams.
Off Chambers?
It's on Chambers. If you're familiar where the Arctic Circle is or the IHC clinic is, it's right across the street from the IHC clinic. It's actually really quite a nice development. I'm sure those homes run right around $350,000 a piece. It's nice. That was the example, and I think that would fit there. But again, we're open for modifying that. The general layout, it's the unit count is kind of important, obviously, to make it all pencil, but how that's manipulated on the site itself, the site is wide open. I mean, we laid that out as Nate and I and some engineers kind of thought it would lay out best, but it's certainly manipulable.
To the extent that you don't have the power lines impeding.
The power lines do create a problem with the
Right.
easement structure, and it creates a problem on you can't build under power lines. You can't build, my understanding is you can't build storage units under power lines. That easement has to be maintained open. And so we try to take advantage of that in this particular layout to create open space. But you know, I mean, architects, engineers, they're clever guys, and so we can manipulate that, and as well as the hotel side. I mean, I think those two things and are very open. I mean, we're open to all that. If you'd prefer to see the residential more towards the road and the retail more towards the back, or however you'd see it. I mean, that's just engineering. But the concept of storage units and some housing and things of that nature, and the basic fundamentals of the plan as far as acreage and unit counts, we're kind of at our last iteration as to being able to figure out a way to make this pencil. That doesn't mean we can't relay out the site. And the hotel site is interesting because the value of the hotel site, because a franchisee is likely, they're going to buy that site. You know, we're not going to develop the hotel. So the value of that site is kind of independent. As long as we can generate a concept that would make sense, that amount of acreage would still generate those types of dollars, I can still make this work through a pro forma. That's really where we are. We are literally kind of at the end of the pro forma. It's imperative that I'm able to generate the value of that hotel site if it were to become something different, more retail, more whatever. That I can still generate the same dollar out of that particular 2.5 acre site or whatever that is, in order to make this all pencil through. Because we are honestly at the end of the pro forma as to where it makes any kind of sense. That's kind of where we are. But let us manipulate the site and see if we can make something that's a little more amenable to you guys. And continue the discussion. I mean, we want to see something happen here. We're trying to be as open book as possible.
Okay. Anything else, Tim?
No, I just trying to give them direction.
If we'd like to, I'd love to have community response if my email is posted out there. I don't know the best way to do that, but I'd love to engage if somebody would like to email me.
Prepare yourself, Marty.
If you put it out there, you're going to get
an email.
Kim, will you facilitate that?
I will do that, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm a little confused, Tim, what you're thinking about these homes. I don't want to drag it on either, but you like the fourplex, you don't like the fourplex, you just don't like the location. I'm a little confused.
No, I just want to give them direction as to what we're thinking as a group. So,
okay.
What are we thinking as a group? That's the question.
Yeah. To me, mixed use, means the residential and the business, they complement each other. And when I look at this design, they seem fairly independent.
Yep.
They don't seem to, they both stand on their own, really. And so it doesn't seem mixed use to me.
You want the pot stirred more?
No, not at all. And I don't believe that, walkable community is what we're looking for in South Weaver. It doesn't make a lot of sense. We don't have the density. And I'm not looking to add a whole lot of density at all.
And again, something that's been reiterated a few times in this meeting, the plan is to have that whole parcel CH.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying that you can take the same number of units that they're offering and you could consolidate them a little bit more or cluster them a little bit tighter and have bigger open spaces, which might allow for a couple things. One, it might allow for a historical area, a park area that could be enjoyed by the residents. The other thing is it might allow more of that expandable area for the business development by clustering some of the residential. So
A little tighter. Okay, very good. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Just Plan Commission comments. Gary, you're on next, looks like.
I'm good. Thank you.
Tim?
So what is our next items to discuss as far as zoning and development? Is that the next meeting? Are we going to have some specific points that we want to talk about?
For this development?
No, nothing to do with this.
Okay.
Not at all.
So part of what I wanted to ask the commission, and the open house is scheduled for the 24th and 25th. How comfortable is the commission about being a part of an open house considering the pandemic?
I'll be out of town, so I'll be great with whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So what's the proposal though, Rob?
What's that?
Like, what's the format? What's the proposed format?
It'll be just like we did before down at the rec center.
6-foot intervals.
I believe it is supposed to be a Google sign up to come to try to keep the numbers down. It'll be at the rec center and we'll be segregated off like we were before and hopefully have the numbers lower, is the way I was told.
Here's the thing. I would never put anybody in the commission in a position where they feel like they have to go if they're not comfortable. And I absolutely will hold a strong line, and I'll go plead the case to the city council if I have to. But because I'm not, I just don't want to make somebody do something they don't want to do.
So I'll be just completely open there. I know I'm in the minority of this state, but I think it's crazy that we're having a public open house right now. I totally get the need for it, but just circumstances with my family, I've been debating whether or not I would go. I'm still debating, but as the numbers rise, the more concerned I get about the city hosting a gathering of people. So, and again, I recognize I'm in the vast minority of
I don't think so.
residents. So.
I think we're seeing that the numbers are rising faster than anybody expected, and it's going to continue to rise until we come up with a vaccine or something that will prevent this. It's going to be an issue that we're going to have to address throughout the entire, as long as this exists.
When Dave approached me about those dates, he was thinking the state would move to green.
No, the state's not moving to green.
Well, and Governor Herbert said today that no, we're putting a pause and we're staying at yellow.
Yep.
So
Rob, with that said, I'll put my voice out there to say I'm okay with it. I know not everybody is, and we don't have to have everybody there, correct? I mean, if there's a certain populace of our city that would prefer face-to-face contact, that's fine. I like the idea being proposed of having an appointment, so to try to tier and control how many people we have in one spot. One concern I have about that is how do you kick people out so that we can keep people flowing through. But that being said, I feel like we could reasonably social distance everyone, and I feel personally okay with doing something like that. So not to say one way or the other whether we should or not, but I'm willing.
Sure.
And I want to hear people's comments. I mean, I hope nobody takes that I don't want to hear public comments. I do. I just, again, a personal situation with a family member, where my family's at a higher risk. So if there's a way that we could collect comments other than, just face to face, I mean, if there's a way for people to submit those. But again, I'm still debating. So I would say don't cancel it on my part.
Okay. Thanks. I just don't know where to go now. Because I'm kind of the opinion is I'm not sure what more information I'm going to get from an open house that everybody hasn't already said. So I'm a little confused on what that is. And so are we having it just for the sake of having it? Or is there some more information we really need to gather?
Well, they're doing the survey. The city's coming out with a new survey to ask the same questions they've asked for the past 10 years. And we're going to get the same answers.
Yeah.
I tend to believe that there's other opinions out there that will probably be expressed as well. So I think it's an important component of any general plan is to get as much public comment as you can. I know sometimes it's just going to be the same comment over and over, but for what it's worth, I do feel like it's an essential part of what we're asking the citizens to do is to envision South Weber. And if maybe a lot of the residents feel just like most of us do on the planning commission, they won't come out. They won't want to be in a public setting, and that way will probably drive down some numbers. But for those who feel like, to be heard, they have to be in person, I think we could reasonably accommodate that given the direction the state has provided us on COVID responses.
And I do think if we continue with the public open house, we do have to set those guidelines and make things so it's safe for everybody, for us, for the public, and everybody else. So,
I mean, I'm with you. I really want to hear where everybody wants to go. I just don't want to put anybody at risk. And I don't even know if there's even community members out there who think I don't really want to go to any kind of an open house. So is there another way to facilitate that except through the survey? I have no idea. This is all green to me. I apologize, but
we could always do it. We could always do a survey to see how many people would like to attend it.
Add that question to the survey.
But I'm more concerned about the commission themselves. I really want to make sure everybody is either is comfortable with what we're deciding to do, because I have no right to speak for anybody.
No,
I think
at this time, I'm not comfortable with it.
Okay.
we have the option to not go.
But what's the point if the citizens can't talk about the general plan on a map at a public open house? That's, I guess what I'm saying is if they have the open house and none of us show up, that's kind of missing the point, right?
Well, city council will be there, correct?
Not necessarily.
Well, this is kind of our deal.
Rob, I think if you told Dave how many were going to be there from planning commission and he found out how many planned on being there from city council, then we could make a decision. If most people aren't comfortable, it may change that decision. Okay.
Well, I before I had a side discussion with Dave, I really wanted to speak with the commission. So that's how I feel.
Well, I will be out of town, Rob.
Okay.
So Blair, do you know what the council's feelings are? I mean, are they all planning on being there? Or?
The majority of the council, I believe, plans on being there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Rob, I'm willing.
Okay.
And from what I've heard of what's being proposed, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
And we still have some time, so I'll think about it, and we'll see what happens.
You know, I'm not exactly comfortable with it yet. I'm trying to warm up to it, but and brings me to the next thing. I'd like to continue to have the Zoom meetings for Planning Commission that we can control as a group. We're getting feedback from folks. Anybody can call me and I'll talk face to face with them on the phone or in my driveway, whatever, if someone has comments. But I just don't want to get in a room with a bunch of people. That's just not where I'm at. So I think the Zoom is working and everybody's getting a chance to say what they want to say. How does everybody else feel about that?
I agree.
I agree.
I support that.
Okay.
Taylor.
Taylor, what are you doing?
It's less optimal. I get it, but yeah, I'll just say I prefer to be in chambers. I think we can still reasonably address the COVID requirements. But hey, I'm one of 5 now, so I'm good.
So I will just to be clear, I'll just recommend to Dave that we will keep going via Zoom for at least through the July meeting.
So Taylor, now you know how I felt during the last meeting.
Completely understand.
I mean, I have both parents and in-laws that are currently, one's in the hospital, one's cancer, one's had a heart attack recently, and the other is asthmatic and diabetic. And so it's good for me to stay, remote.
Well,
everyone's
plus
got a unique circumstance. I get that.
Yeah.
And I've had to send hundreds of senior missionaries home from their missions for those very conditions. So that's why I'm kind of attuned to it as well. So if we can keep doing this, I would support that.
Okay. I support that as well. So
As long as the governor still allows the electronic meetings, I don't see a problem in it. I think that was a conversation David and I had. Is he says if the governor changes the requirements for public meetings, we may not have a choice. But right now, with the way things are going, I don't know. We're good through the end of June, and I suspect if cases keep going up, I think that they'll extend that. I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll let you know, Rob, what's going on.
okay, that's fair.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think it's not going away.
No, it's not.
Like any of us hoped. I really did. I was hopeful that once the weather warmed up, it would be going away, and it's not. So, okay. So I kind of jumped the boat there. I apologize. Those are the 2 things I wanted to ask. Wes, you have anything?
A couple of things. The Parks and Trails Committee, we got a item that the city would like to dispose of a piece of property associated with one of our parks. I think this is something that should be brought up at a planning commission meeting, since it kind of relates to the general plan. We talk about annexation, but we're not talking about disposal of any city property. And this is something I think that the planning commission should address and give feedback to the city council on this before the city council moves forward.
Can it be on our next agenda, Wes?
I would check with Angie and see if she wants us to address this. I think we should.
Will you coordinate with Kim and Angie and then shoot back to us? Okay.
Yeah, just get me the information, and I'll also get with Angie, whatever I need to do. If I need to put it on the agenda, I'll get it on there.
Yeah, do that, Kim, if you would. It just came out today.
Okay.
Okay.
Another thing that's kind of in the back of my mind on this, or a couple of things that going through the zoning requirements and everything. One thing I found that I put a table together of our commercial and commercial highway side by side to see what the differences were. They're minimal. And I'm just wondering if it'd be possible for us to merge some of these different zones into one zone to represent a broader extent versus having 2 or 3 types of zones that say the same thing. I think Barry's looked at this, and we've said, well, gee, it can't be commercial, but it can be commercial highway because that allows this type of operation. Why can't we take that type of operation and put it into the commercial and then merge it all together? And I think it's something that we need to look at when we're going to be talking about our redoing some of our zoning and stuff like that. One other thing, I'd like to talk about mixed use. And we need to be clarified on mixed use. We have no guidelines whatsoever as to what mixed use is. we can do whatever we want with mixed use. And somebody's going to come back and say the planning commission is being arbitrary and capricious, and we're going to be facing a lawsuit. We need some specific guidelines to follow for mixed use. And the city hasn't developed anything yet.
Well, the position was through the mixed use committee, and Taylor, I help me. It was, the mixed use was, here's certain pieces of property that we will consider mixed use, but bring us what you got. Is that the way it went, Taylor?
Yep.
That's the way it went.
Yep. So we're going to get mixed use requests for one piece of property, and somebody's going to come in and say, well, gee, you did it for them. Why can't you do it for us?
Well, the only thing is,
and we're being
we've
arbitrary
identified-
and capricious on that.
No, we've identified the parcels that we would consider a mixed use.
Okay. But we still need some specific guidelines, I think.
Okay.
So actually, that was the feeling was that we wanted something totally opposite. We didn't want strict guidelines.
Correct.
We wanted to open it up. Kind of experimental, to be perfectly honest with you, in my mind. But that's kind of what we're getting in this proposal is, you know, if we open up the entire toolbox to a developer and say, give us something that really impresses us, that's what we're hoping to get out of these two parcels.
Could I jump in here and make a suggestion? Rather than get into details on the zoning ordinance at this time, I think we ought to put this on the agenda for next meeting, but I think we ought to, what I'd like for you to do as planning commissioners is just take some notes to yourself to bring to that meeting as to where you see the problems in our current ordinance. Where have you found, just like Wes mentioned, there are some zones that seem like there are very little difference between them. Which zones are you talking about? Let's just go through and give me a list of where you see problems and issues that you think need to be worked on. And that'll give me some basis of where to start with the ordinance. And it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be very small things, but just, you know, make notes. You've had enough experience to get some feel for where there are problems, I think, particularly in the last year, that we can nail down quite a bit of it just that way. I mean, not the solutions to the problems. I just want to find out where the problems are.
So
Can you add that to our agenda?
We talked about last time, Rob, right?
What? What's that?
Everyone picking a section, isn't that, we talked about the last time, everyone picking a section of the zoning ordinances and bringing comments, concerns, questions, and I guess it's just a matter of when do we want to have that due.
I think Barry's talking about a 30,000 foot level first.
Yeah.
Start hanging it, you know, hacking it down.
Yeah,
and that's what we talked about our last meeting, right? Are we talking two different efforts?
If we have Kim put it on our agenda, Barry, will you coordinate that with her, and then will you lead that discussion? And then
absolutely,
we'll do what you've asked is by trying to figure out where and what, and we'll look at the map.
Just take notes. I know it's a big ordinance, and I don't expect you to go and read through every detail in that ordinance, but you've had experiences. Just make notes on where you have noted problems as we've gone through various projects, proposals. What are the issues you've seen? Okay.
Yeah, I you know, fencing just comes right off the top, but
okay, there's a good
question
right there.
Yeah. So anyway, if you do that and Kim put that on our agenda with that, I'd appreciate it.
Rob, I can do that, but we are very, very, very heavy in July with the general plan discussion and all these other items. Are you sure you want to try to put that in there as well, or it's your option? I just wanted to let you know. We have a couple of other things also on there.
So the general plan discussion, what I see is that being a little more brief, is gathering the information, kind of, again, 30,000 foot view in July, and then August, having the commission bring their details in, so then we can finish wrapping it up and get it to the city council in September.
All right, then I can do that.
Is that what everybody else kind of sees? That's kind of how I saw it happening, but okay.
Yeah.
Getting close.
All right. Getting in the neighborhood, right? Who am I on? Are you still on US? You still got?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Tyler?
Yeah.
Taylor, you have the worst internet than any of us. I don't know what the deal is. Will you please up your plan? No, I'm just messing with you.
That's why he wants to meet in person.
I know, I can see that. Yep. So that's all I have. Look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the feedback on the open house information as well as the next meeting. So have a good 4th of July if I don't talk to you at the open house.